Hello everyone. Today I am here with the chapter of class 12th History, Bhakti, Sufi tradition. First of all, we talk about source to understand Bhakti and Sufi tradition. Textual sources available for this period include composition attributed to poet saints, most of whom express themselves orally in regional languages. These compositions, which were often set to music, were compiled by disciples or devotees after the death of the poet saint. Historians also draw on hagiographies or biographies of the saint written by their disciple or devotees. These may not be literally accurate but allow a glimpses into the way in which devotee perceived the life of these path-breaking women and men. Hagiography we have already discussed in our previous videos. That means biography of a saint which was written by their disciples. India is a mosaic of religious belief and practices, the integration of various cults or traditions of Hinduism. There were two processes at work to integrate different cults. One was a process of disseminating Brahmical ideas. This is exemplified by the composition, compilation, and preservations of Puranic texts in simple Sanskrit verses explicitly meant to be accessible to women and Shudras. At the same time, there was a second process at work, that of the Brahmins accepting the revoking the the beliefs and practices of Shudras. In fact, many beliefs and practices were shaped through a continuous dialogues between Brahmins and Shudras traditions throughout the land. One of the most striking examples of this process is evident at Puri, Orissa, where the principal deities were identified as Jagannath, literally the Lord of the world, a form of Vishnu. Such instances of integration are evident among goddess cults as well. Worship of the goddess often simplify in the form of a stone colored with red and yellow mud. That means they are talking about the sindoor, red and yellow sindoor covered with sindoor. They were identified as wives of the principal male deities. Sometimes they were equated with Lakshmi, the wife of Vishnu, in other instances with Parvati, the wife of Shiva. Now, there were differences and conflict between various cults of tradition of Hinduism. In this differences, and we'll talk about the Tantric practice, Puranic traditions, and Vedic traditions. First of all, we talk about Tantric practices. Those engaged in Tantric practices frequently ignored the authority of the Vedas. Tantric practices were widespread in several parts of the subcontinent. They were open to women and men, and practitioners often ignored difference of caste and class within the ritual context. They followed sacrifices or precisely chanted mantras. Then Puranic tradition. Also, devotees often tended to project their chosen deities, either Vishnu or Shiva, as supreme. The singing and chanting of the devotional composition were often a part of such modes of worship. This was particularly true of the Vaishyavas and Shaivas section. Alvars and Nainas were part of this tradition. Now, the Vedic tradition. In Vedic tradition, the principal deity are Agni, Indra, and Som. Those who valued the Vedic traditions often condemned other practices. Vedic practices were only men and Brahmins, Kshatris, and Vaishya. They practices Vedic tradition by chanting long Vedic hymns and elaborate sacrifices. Remember that we have already discussed that women and Shudras, they were not at all allowed to read or listen the Vedas. Early traditions of Bhakti in Tamil Nadu. Historians of religion often classify Bhakti traditions into two broad categories, Shagun and Nirgun. The Sargun Bhakti included traditions that focus on the worship of special deities such as Shiv, Vishnu, and his avatar, and form of the goddesses or Devi in human form. Nirgun Bhakti, on the other hand, was the worship of an abstract, that means non living object, form of God. Then we talk about the Alvars and Nainas. Alvars, some of the earliest uh, Bhakti movement were led by the Alvars, literally those who are immersed in devotion to Vishnu. Nainas, literally leaders who were devotee to Shiva. They traveled from place to place singing hymns in Tamil in praise of their god during their travel of the uh, their travel. Alvar and Nainas identified certain shrine as abode of their chosen deities, and large temples were built at these sacred places. These developed as centers of pilgrimage. Some historians suggest that the Alvar and Nainas initiated a movement of protest against the caste system and dominance of Brahmins. Alvar and Nainas claim that their composition were as important as the Vedas. The composition of Alvar, the Nainar Nalayira Divya Prabandham, was frequently described as the Tamil Veda, and the composition of Nainas in Tevaram. One of the most striking features of the tradition was the presence of women. Now we talk about the Nainas and Alvars and their relationship with the state. Remember that the Alvars are the devotee of Vishnu and Nainas are the devotee of Shiva. Cholas, Pallavas and Pandyas ruled South India. Buddhism and Jainism had been prevalent in this region for several centuries. Alvar and Nainas opposed Buddhism and Jainism through their hymns. What was the reason why they were opposing the Buddhism and Jainism? This hostility was due to the competition between religious traditions for royal patronage. Chola rulers supported Brahmical and Bhakti tradition, making land grant and constructing temples for Vishnu and Shiva. In fact, some of the most magnificent Shiv temples, including those at Chidambaram, Tanjavur, were constructed under the patronage of Chola rulers, and representation of Shiva in bronze sculptures were produced. Rulers tried to win the support of Alvars and Nainas. The Chola kings often attempt to claim divine support and proclaim their own powers and status by building splendid temples that were adorned with stones and metal sculptures to create the vision of their popular saints who sang in the language of the people. These kings also introduced the singing of Tamil Shaiva hymns in the temples under royal patronage, taking the initiative to collect and organize them into a text, that means Tevaram. The text, it is mentioned that it is Tevaram. Chola ruler Prantak first had consecrated metal images of Bhakti saints Appar, Samandar, and Sundarar in a Shiv temple. These were carried in procession during the festival of these saints. The Vishavas tradition in Karnataka. A new tradition in Karnataka led by a Brahmin named Baswanna, who was initially a minister in the court of the king. His followers were known as Vishavas. Hero of Shiva or Lingayat, wearing of the ling. They worship Shiv in his manifestation as a ling, and men usually wear a small ling in a silver case on a loop strung over the left shoulder. Those who are reversed, including the Jangama or wandering monks. Lingayat believe that on death the devotees will be united with Shiv and will not return in this world. Therefore, they do not practice cremation, instead, they ceremonially bury their dead. The Lingayat challenged the idea of caste and the pollution attributed to certain group of Brahmins. They also questioned the theory of rebirth. These warned them followers amongst those who were neglected by the Brahmins. The Lingayat also encouraged certain practices such as post-puberty marriages and the remarriage of the widow. Our understanding of the Vaishnava tradition is derived from Vachana, composed in Kannada by women and men who joined the movement. Now, the religious tradition that ferment in North India. During this period in North India, deities such as Vishnu and Shiva were worshipped in temples, often built with the support of the rulers. However, historians have not found evidences of anything resembling the composition of the Alva, Nainas, and the Lingayat. This was the period when several Rajput states emerged in North India. In most of these states, Brahmins occupied positions of importance, performing a range of secular and ritual functions. There seems little attempt to challenge Brahminical position directly. These included the Nath, Jogis, and Siddhas. Nath, that means Nanpantis, Jogis, and Siddhas. Many of them came from artisan groups, including weavers who had long distance trade with Central Asia and West Asia. Many of these new religious leaders questioned the authority of the Vedas and expressed themselves in language spoken by ordinary people, which developed over centuries in the one used today. However, these religious leaders were not in a position to win the support of the rulers. A new element in the situation was the coming of the Turk and establishment of the Delhi Sultanate. This undermined the power of many of the Rajput states and the Brahmins who were associated with these kingdoms. New strength in the fabric Islam tradition, that means arrival of Islam into India. Arab merchants frequented port along the western coast in the first millennium CE. They settled in the Malabar coast. In 711, an Arab general named Muhammad Qasim conquered Sindh, which became part of Caliph domain. Later, the Turk and Afghan established the Delhi Sultanate. They continued with the establishment of the Mughal Empire in the 16th century. When the Babur came, he defeated Ibrahim Lodi in the first battle of Panipat, that means in 1526. Theoretically, Muslim rulers were to be guided by the ulema. Ulema are the theologians who were well versed in Islamic laws. Rulers ruled according to the Sharia. The Sharia is the law governed the Muslim community. It is based on the Quran and the Hadith. Muslim rulers and protected people of all the religion but collected jizya tax from the non-Muslims. Several rulers gave land endowment and granted tax exemptions to Hindu, Jain, Christians and the Jews religion institution and also express respect to the saints. The popular practice of Islam in India. The developments that followed the coming of Islam permeated for far and wide through the subcontinent amongst different social strata, peasants, artisans, warrior, merchants, to name a few. All those who adopted Islam accepted in principle the five pillars of the faith. There is one God Allah, and Prophet Muhammad is his messenger. Offering prayer 5 times a day, giving alms, that means charity, fasting during the month of Ramzan, and performing the pilgrimage to Mecca. However, these universal features were often overlaid with diversities in practice derived from local customary practices of convert from different social millennia. For example, the Khoza, a branch of the Sia sect, composed devotional poem in Punjabi, Multani, Sindh, Kutchi, Hindi and Gujarati, sing them in a special raga during daily prayer meetings. Arab Muslim traders who settled down along the Malabar coast, that means Kerala, adopted the local language Malayalam. They also adopted local customs such as matrilini and matrilocal residence. Some architectural features of mosque are universal, such as their orientation toward Makkah, evident in the placement of the mihrab, the minbar. However, a mosque in Kerala is built with shikar, as you can see in this picture. A mosque is built in Kashmir with wood, and a mosque is built in Bangladesh with bricks. Different name for Muslim communities. Historians pointed out that the term Musalman or Muslim was virtually never used in India up to 14th century. Instead, they were occasionally identified in the term, often region from which they came. Turkish rulers were designated as Turkasha. Tazaka were people from Tajikistan. Parishika were people from Persia. Sometimes terms used for the other people were applied to the new migrants. For instance, the Turk and Afghan were referred as the Saka and Yavanas. Yavanas for the Greek people. A more general term for these migrant communities was Malicha, indicating that they did not observe the norm of caste society and spoke language that were not derived from Sanskrit. But the word Muslim or the Hindu that did not recognize as a religious. Now we talk about the Sufism. What is Sufism and the growth of Sufism? In the early centuries of Islam, a group of religious minded people called Sufi turned to asceticism and mysticism in protest against the growing materialism of the caliphate. They were critical of the dogmatic definitions and scholastic method of interpreting the Quran and Sunnah by the ulema. They emphasized on seeking salvation through intense devotion and love for God by following the command of Prophet Muhammad. Now we talk about the Khwanka, Silsila, and Ziyarat. Khwanqa, it is institutionally the Sufi began to organize communities around the hospice or Khwanqa, controlled by a teaching masters known as the Sheikh. He enrolled disciple and appointed a successor. He established rule for spiritual conduct and interaction between inmate as well as between layperson and the master. Then silsila, the word silsila literally means spiritual chain, signifying a continuous link between master and disciple, stretching an unbroken spiritual genealogy from Allah to Prophet Muhammad, then to Sufi, and then to devotee. It was through this channel that spiritual power and blessings were transmitted to devotees. Then ziyarat, when the sheikh died, he was buried into tomb shrine, and his tomb shrine is called dargah. It became the center of a devotion for his followers. This encouraged the practice of pilgrimage or ziyarat to his grave, particularly on his birth, death, and marriage anniversaries. This was because people believed that in death saints were united with God. So that's all for today. Hope you like the presentation. Thank you.